His brain was too loud for the alien council, so they tried to shut him down. Jason stood quietly in the small shuttle as it floated toward the Galactic Union space station. The stars outside the window looked peaceful, but his heart was racing. He had trained for years to get here, and now he was finally entering the alien world. The shuttle docked with a soft click, and the door opened with a hiss. He stepped out and looked around. The hallway was bright and made of smooth metal that glowed blue. Strange creatures walked past him, some tall and thin, some short and covered in fur. A robot drone floated to him, scanning his face. "Welcome, human cadet Jason Clark." It said, "Follow me." Jason nodded and followed the drone through the curved corridors. Every step echoed, and the air smelled like something sweet and cold. He passed a group of green-skinned aliens whispering in a language he didn't understand. They looked at him with curious eyes. Jason heard one of them mutter, "That's the human." He pretended not to notice, but inside, he felt small. He had seen aliens before on Earth, but this was different. Here, he was the outsider, the only human on the station. He tried to walk with confidence, but his hands were sweating. The drone stopped at a silver door. "Partner introduction," it said, then floated away. Jason took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was quiet, round, and had a large window showing the stars. In the center stood a girl. She looked about his age, maybe a little older. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, and her long hair floated gently as if the air moved with her. She turned to him, and her violet eyes locked onto his. Jason froze. She was stunning, not just alien beautiful, but human beautiful. He didn't know what to say. "She's like a dream," he thought. "Is this my partner?" Then, without warning, another thought pushed into his mind, one he didn't mean to think. If she's telepathic, she can read everything, even the dirty stuff. His face turned red, and he looked away quickly. "I'm sorry," he said, almost shouting. He felt stupid and embarrassed, but then she smiled. Not a friendly smile, not exactly. It was small, sharp, and knowing, like she had just found something amusing. She walked closer, her boots making no sound. Jason didn't dare speak. "I'm Valari," she said, her voice soft and smooth. "Your partner." She held out her hand. Jason shook it, trying not to think anything weird. But she smirked again, and he knew he had failed. She was reading his thoughts, all of them. "You're loud," she said with a gentle laugh. "Very loud." Jason opened his mouth to explain, but she waved her hand. "It's fine," she said. "You're not the first to think strange things." He nodded quickly, unsure if she was angry or amused. Then she added, "But you're the first human I've ever linked with." Linked? Jason asked, confused. "Yes," she said. "Tomorrow, we begin the mind link trial." Jason blinked. He hadn't known it would happen so fast. He barely knew her, and now they would connect minds. Before he could ask more, the wall lit up and a voice echoed, "Cadets Valari and Jason, you will begin training at 0900 Standard Time." Valari turned and walked toward the door. "You should rest," she said. "Your thoughts move like fire, and I want to see what else is hiding in them." Jason stood frozen as the door closed behind her. What did she mean by that? Was it just a joke? Or did she really feel something inside his mind? He sat down, trying to clear his head. He had expected his first day to be hard, but he didn't expect this. A beautiful alien girl who could hear every word in his head. And instead of being angry, she smiled. That smile scared him more than any weapon, because it meant she wasn't just hearing his thoughts, she was enjoying them. Jason lay on the bed in the corner of the room, eyes wide open. The stars outside blinked softly as the station floated in space. He whispered to himself, "This is going to be a long week." But in the back of his mind, another whisper stirred. Not his voice, Valari's. "Careful. Jason from Earth," it said. "Your thoughts are wild. And I like wild." Jason woke up with a jolt. The room still dark except for the faint blue glow from the window. He had dreamed about Valari again, not in the way he wanted, but in a strange way. She had been standing in fire, smiling, while the stars fell from the sky. He rubbed his face and sat up, trying to shake off the feeling. It was too quiet, like the station itself was holding its breath. A soft chime echoed through the room, followed by a voice. "Training begins in 10 minutes." Jason pulled on his uniform and took one last look in the mirror. His hair was a mess and his eyes still tired, but it didn't matter. He had to look calm. Even if he wasn't, the training hall was huge, like a dome of silver and light. Aliens of all shapes stood in small groups, some floating, some stretching, limbs that didn't look like arms, and there, at the far end, stood Valari. She was watching him already, arms crossed. Jason felt the heat rise in his face again. He walked up to her, trying not to think anything stupid. "Good morning," he said, keeping his thoughts focused on the floor. "You're quieter today," she replied with a grin. "Did you sleep well, or were you just trying not to imagine me again?" Jason stared at her, mouth open. "I don't know. I mean, yes, I slept fine," he said. "And I didn't imagine, okay, maybe a little." Valari laughed softly and turned away. Jason couldn't tell if she was teasing or testing him. A voice boomed across the hall. "Cadet teams, you will enter the simulation chamber." The floor opened and a ramp extended downward. Jason followed Valari into the chamber, a room filled with holograms and shifting lights. "This is a trust test," said the instructor, an alien with eyes on his shoulders. "One of you will see the path, the other will be blind." Jason's heart skipped. "I'll go blind," he offered quickly. Valari raised an eyebrow. "Brave," she said, "or guilty?" He didn't answer, just nodded and stepped into the center platform. A visor dropped over his eyes, blocking everything. "Can you hear me?" Valari's voice echoed in his head. Yes, Jason thought, unsure how she heard him without words. "Then move forward," she said, her voice cool and calm. He took a step, then another. "Stop," she warned suddenly. "There's a drop ahead." Jason froze, heart pounding. He could feel the edge near his foot, like his body just knew. It was real. "How did you know?" he asked, still thinking, not speaking. "I'm in your head, remember?" she replied. "I feel what you feel." They continued like that for several minutes, Jason moving through the maze, Valari guiding him. She never raised her voice, but every time he hesitated, her thoughts wrapped around his like a hand holding his for a moment. He forgot she was alien. She felt human, or maybe something better when the test ended. The visor lifted and light flooded his eyes. Valari stood close to him, too close, her face serious. "You trust easily," she said, "even with your mind exposed." Jason shrugged. "I had no choice," he said. "Besides, I trust you." Her eyes searched his for a long moment. "You shouldn't," she whispered. "Not yet, later." In the mess hall, Jason sat alone with a tray of strange glowing food. He barely touched it. His head was still spinning from the test. Not just because of the danger, but because of what he had felt. Valari had seen everything. Even the memories he didn't share, old pain, old love, his fear of being alone. She had walked through all of it like it was a hallway, and yet, she hadn't pulled away. She stayed. She even smiled across the room. A group of alien cadets watched him, whispering. One of them, tall and scaled, walked over. "You're the human," he said flatly. Jason looked up, unsure if it was a question or a warning. "I'm Jason," he replied, standing slowly. The alien looked at him with cold eyes. "Stay away from Valari," he said. "She's not your kind." Jason clenched his jaw. "She's my partner," he said. "I don't choose my kind. I choose who I trust." The alien leaned in voice. "Low, she'll break you," he said. "All of you break eventually." That night, Jason lay awake again. His mind replayed the day like a movie stuck on loop. Valari's voice, the simulation, the warning, but in the silence, he felt something else, a presence, soft and electric, brushing against his thoughts. "Jason," Valari's voice whispered in his head. "Yes," he thought back, not surprised she was there. "I saw something in you today," she said. "Something hidden." Jason didn't answer. He wasn't sure what she meant, but he felt it too, deep inside him, a spark, waiting to grow, and somewhere in the dark, Valari was smiling again. Valari sat in silence, her eyes half closed around her. The stars moved like slow fire through the black window, but she wasn't looking at the stars. She was inside Jason's mind again. At first, it had been like touching water clear, but full of surface noise, simple thoughts, strong emotions, a loud and curious brain. But today, Something had shifted. There were doors now, hidden under the noise, and she wanted to know what was behind them. Jason was asleep, breathing softly in the next room. She wasn't supposed to enter his deeper thoughts, not without permission, but the curiosity burned in her like heat in her chest. Why did this human make her feel like this? Why did his thoughts taste like danger and wonder at the same time? She slipped in carefully, not to wake him, and there it was, a door behind a dream. She touched it with her mind, and it opened. Flashes hit her all at once, screaming skies, fire across a battlefield, children crying in the dark, holding broken toys, a girl's voice saying "don't go," over and over again, then silence, followed by a heartbeat that grew louder and louder. Valari pulled back, eyes wide. Jason stirred in his bed, frowning in his sleep. He whispered something, but she couldn't understand the word. She looked down at her hands, and they were shaking. This wasn't just memory, this was something deeper, something growing. Humans weren't supposed to have this, not so soon, not so strong. The next morning, Jason noticed her quiet mood. "You okay?" he asked as they walked toward the training hall. Valari nodded, her voice flat. "Did you dream last night?" Jason paused. "Yeah," he said slowly, "weird stuff, like a war, and my sister, maybe." Valari looked at him. "You remember your dreams?" "Not all of it," he said, but it felt real, like it wasn't just a dream. She didn't tell him she had been there. She didn't tell him she had seen the fear inside him. And something else, a kind of power, buried under pain. She wasn't sure if it was beautiful or dangerous. Training that day was strange. Jason reacted faster than he ever had before. He dodged an energy blast before the warning even sounded, caught a falling blade midair without looking. Even Valari looked at him like he was something new. After the session, the commander called Valari aside. "You're bonded to the human," the voice said. Flat and cold. "Yes," Valari replied. "You must monitor him closely." "Why?" she asked, even though she already knew. The orb pulsed with dim light. "There are changes in his neural patterns," it said. "He may be unstable." That night, Valari sat beside Jason in the observation deck. They watched the stars without speaking for a long time. Jason broke the silence. "Do you think something's wrong with me?" Valari didn't answer right away. "No," she said finally. "But something is waking up." Jason nodded, like he already felt it. "Is that bad?" "I don't know," she said softly, "but it's not normal." He leaned back in the chair, hands behind his head. "What if I'm changing?" he asked. "What if I become something else? Then I'll still be here," she said. Surprising herself with the words, Jason looked at her, searching her face, and for the first time, she looked away. Later that night, Jason dreamed again. But this time, he wasn't alone. He walked through a forest of broken machines, and there, in the center, stood Valari, waiting. Her eyes glowed silver, her voice deep and calm. "Jason," she said, "what are you hiding from yourself?" "I don't know," he said, "but I think it's starting to remember me." The trees around them began to burn, and the sky cracked open like glass. Jason fell to his knees, and from the fire, a figure stepped forward. It looked like him, but older, stronger, and with burning eyes. It didn't speak, just stared back at him. Valari reached out to touch it, but her hand passed through. Jason woke up with a gasp. Sweat covered his face, and his heart beat like a hammer. He looked around the dark room, then at the door, and there she was, Valari, standing in the doorway. "You saw it too," he said, voice shaking. She nodded, not moving. Jason looked at his hands. "What am I becoming?" Valari's voice was calm, but her eyes were not. "I don't know," she said. "But your mind is changing faster than any human should." They both stood in the silence, not afraid of each other, but afraid of what might be waking up inside. One of them, and somewhere deep in the space between thoughts, something smiled. The alarms didn't scream. They sang a low, rising hum that seemed to crawl under the skin. Jason sprinted through the corridor, pulse thudding in his ears. The space station trembled around him like a living thing in pain. He didn't know where the blast came from, only that Valari was in the north wing when it hit. He turned sharply and slammed into a group of soldiers in armor. "Restricted zone," one barked, grabbing his arm. "My partner's in there," Jason snapped, voice sharper than he intended. The alien soldier hesitated. "You're the human," he said, almost like an accusation. Jason tore free and ran without waiting for permission. Smoke filled the hall as he reached the blast site, panels torn from the walls, sparks falling like rain, and there through the haze he saw her. Valari lying on the ground, still. Jason didn't think. He just moved. He dropped beside her, hands shaking. "Valari," he whispered. Hey, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered, but didn't open. Blood silver and glowing ran down the side of her face. He touched her forehead gently. No. "Come on," he said, voice breaking. He didn't care who saw. She had saved him, trained with him, connected with him. She had read every dark part of his mind and still smiled. Now she was broken, and he felt something inside him crack wide open. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms, and something happened. A flash not of light, but of memory, of energy. It surged from his chest into hers like lightning through water. Jason gasped, his vision doubling. For a moment, he wasn't holding Valari. He was her. He saw through her eyes, felt her pain, her confusion, her ancient thoughts. And deeper he felt her feelings for him. Surprise, curiosity, fear, and something warm. Something dangerously close to love. Then it snapped back, and she coughed, gasping for air. Jason stared, frozen. Valari blinked slowly, then looked at him, dazed. "You linked with me," she whispered. "I didn't mean to," he said. "I just didn't want to lose you." She tried to sit up, but fell into his arms again. Their faces were close to close, and then, before he could stop himself, he kissed her. It wasn't romantic, not exactly. It was desperate, a crash of emotions, like two storms touching. For a second, the air around them sparked, and the lights above flickered. When they pulled apart, neither said a word. Valari touched her lips, confused. Jason just stared, still shaking. "What just happened?" he asked. Valari looked down. "Our bond. It's changed," she said. "It's deeper now." They were taken to the med bay after that. But Jason couldn't rest. He felt something new moving inside him. Not an emotion, but a presence. It wasn't Valari's, and it wasn't his. It was something older, something watching. The doctors ran tests on both of them. They asked questions, showed scans, talked about brain waves and energy spikes. One of the scientists whispered to another. "They fused for a moment," she said. "That shouldn't be possible, not with a human." The other replied, "Not ever." Jason sat up in his bed, staring at his hands again. This wasn't like before. This was becoming. His body felt the same. But his mind felt like it had unlocked a door that was never meant to be opened. Valari entered the room, pale but standing. She looked at him for a long time before speaking. "You kissed me," she said. Jason swallowed hard. "Yeah." She didn't smile this time. Instead, she sat beside him, close enough that their arms touched. "That wasn't just a kiss," she said. "Something else happened." Jason nodded. "I felt it." Valari closed her eyes. "I think we activated something ancient," she said. "Inside you, or inside both of us." There was silence for a long time. Jason turned to her. "I didn't mean to cross a line," he said quietly. "You didn't," she replied. "You changed the map." Outside, the stars continued to burn quietly, but deep within the ship, in systems too old to understand, sensors flickered, lights dimmed. Something had been triggered, something that hadn't stirred in centuries, and at its center was a boy who didn't understand himself and a girl who had never smiled for anyone else. It started with a whisper that wasn't his. Jack was sitting in his assigned room, staring at the wall, trying to calm his mind. But a voice brushed against his thoughts, not Valari's, not his own. Something else, faint, broken, like someone calling from underwater. "You're not safe." Jack stood quickly, looking around the empty room. "Who's there?" he said out loud. No answer. He closed his eyes, trying to reach out mentally, like Valari had taught him. But the voice was gone. He went to the command deck, pretending everything was normal. Valari was there, speaking with two council envoys, one tall and dark-robed, the other with blank silver eyes that never blinked. When she saw Jack, her face changed slightly, a flicker of something unreadable. The taller envoy turned to him. "Human Jack Clark." The voice was smooth but heavy. You are requested to submit to a full neural scan. Jack narrowed his eyes. Why? For safety, the envoy said. Yours and ours. Valari stepped forward. That's not necessary, she said, her voice sharp. I am monitoring his condition closely. The silver-eyed envoy turned to her. You are compromised. It said, emotion clouds your judgment. Valari's expression didn't change, but her energy pulsed. I request a private word with the human, she said. The envoys exchanged a glance, then turned away. Silent, Jack and Valari stepped into the observation chamber. The stars spinning slowly outside the glass. They want to control you now, she said softly. They fear what's growing inside your mind. Jack sighed, leaning against the cold wall. I don't blame them, he said. I'm scared, too. Valari looked at him, serious. There's more, she said. Last night, I felt something strange when I slept. I heard voices. Not just yours. Jack turned quickly. I heard something do a warning. Valari nodded slowly. There's a signal inside you now, a pulse, and I think it's spreading. He didn't understand. Spreading. She hesitated, then walked to the control panel and brought up a chart. Neural patterns glowing in bright lines. This is you, she said, and this, she tapped another, is me. The two patterns looked different, but something was forming in the middle. An overlap, a connection that shouldn't exist. You're copying me, she said. Your brain is adapting, learning how to do what I do. Jack stared at the screen. No, not copying, he whispered, merging. Valari's eyes widened. That's not supposed to happen. Just then, the door burst open, and a security officer ran in. Emergency. There's been a psychic surge in the lower human sector. Non-telepaths are hearing voices. Valari's blood went cold. She looked at Jack, and he already knew what she was thinking. This is because of me, he said. Valari grabbed his arm. We have to leave. Now, they moved fast, avoiding the main halls, taking service corridors and sealed tunnels. Jack's mind buzzed with energy, too much energy, like his thoughts were glowing hot. They reached a quiet chamber deep inside the station's older. Cora placed the council didn't monitor. Valari activated a barrier and locked the door. Jack sat down, breathing hard. He could still feel the echo of that strange whisper in his head. And now, something else. He turned to Valari. There's more I'm not telling you, he said. She didn't react. She simply waited, listening. Jack lowered his voice. During the last attack, I didn't just stop the intruder, he said. I saw into him his memories, his orders, his fear. Valari's eyes narrowed. You accessed his mind? I didn't mean to, Jack said, but it happened, and it felt natural. Silence filled the room. Valari sat down across from him. There's something ancient in your DNA, she said. Something no human has used in thousands of years. She touched her temple. We always believed telepathy was a gift only our kind had, she said, but maybe it was stolen, or lost, or buried in you. Jack looked into her eyes, and now it's waking up again. The lights flickered, and a sudden wave of thought slammed into the room. Not words, but feelings, anger, confusion, fear. Jack and Valari both flinched. Outside, people were shouting, alien guards, humans, even machines glitching from the mental overload. Valari stood. They'll try to stop this, she said. They'll come for you. Jack nodded, slowly rising. Then let's not be here when they do. As the alarms began to scream across the station, and the thoughts of 1,000 minds buzzed like a storm, Jack felt something new. Not panic, not fear, but purpose, because now he knew the truth. The evolution had already started, and it had started with him. Jack no longer needed to speak to be heard. That was the first thing he noticed after escaping the core chamber. The second was worse. He could feel other people's fear before they even looked at him. He and Valari had been running for hours, through back tunnels and gravity lifts. But now they were hiding in an old maintenance bay, silent, breathing hard. Jack crouched behind a broken console, gripping his head with both hands. I can't shut it off, he whispered. I hear everything. Valari sat beside him, watching his hands glow faintly with blue pulses. You're stabilizing, she said. That's not pain, it's expansion. Jack shook his head. It feels like drowning in other people's thoughts. He looked up at her, eyes burning with panic. Why is this happening faster now? Valari hesitated, then spoke carefully. Because someone wants it too. That silence hit harder than any alarm. Jack stared at her. What do you mean? There's a force behind this, she said. Something old, hidden in the council archives. Long before I was born, she pulled out a small data crystal from a cloth pouch. I stole this the day I met you, she added. I had a feeling. You weren't a mistake. Jack took the crystal, but his hand trembled before touching it. What's inside? She looked away for a second, as if remembering something painful, a record of an experiment. She said, long ago, the Verilian Council found a lost species, one with raw psychic potential more powerful than their own. Her voice dropped. Lower, they tried to shape that species, to control it, but it failed violently. Jack didn't breathe for a moment. And what happened to the species? Valari turned to him. They didn't die, she said. They scattered. Her eyes locked on his. Your ancestors, Jack. He stood up, his hands still glowing faintly. My ancestors were human soldiers, engineers, explorers. Valari nodded. They were, she said, but they weren't just human. She tapped her temple. They carried the spark, what we call the mind fire, a seed that lay dormant. Jack stepped back, heart pounding, and now it's awake. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. A loud chime echoed through the wall. Station-wide announcement. All units, report to Deck 9. Subject Clark has breached neural containment. Jack winced. They're hunting me now. Valari walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. Not just you, she said. They'll come for me too. He looked into her eyes, and for once, there was no teasing, no smile, only loyalty, and something else. Trust. Then let's find out who started this, he said, and finish it. Valari reached over, pulled a cover off a side panel, and opened a secret tunnel. This leads to the old data core, she said. Most of it's shut down, but some parts still store history the council tried to erase. They crawled inside, the space tight and cold. As they moved deeper, Jack's mind started to change again. He wasn't just hearing thoughts anymore. He was sending them, even without meaning. A passing maintenance droid froze when he walked near, flickered, and changed direction. A small child in the distance turned suddenly, as if feeling his presence. Valari stopped in front of an old door covered in rust and black cables. This is it, she said. The truth is buried here. Jack reached for the door, but it opened. Before he touched it, as if it knew who he was, inside was darkness, but it didn't feel empty. It felt alive, like something ancient had been waiting in silence, watching time pass. They stepped inside, and the walls lit up not with light, but with memory. Holograms flickered on humans, or almost humans, standing beside Virilians, their eyes glowing bright. A war council, a failed peace treaty, and then experiments, files showing DNA patterns, brain maps. Jack's face appeared on the screen, but it wasn't from today. It was older, decades older. Maybe centuries. He stumbled back. That's not me, he whispered. Valari looked closer. It's a match, she said. You are their echo. Suddenly, a cold voice filled the room. You were never supposed to find this. The wall shifted, and the silver-eyed envoy stepped out of the shadows, flanked by two guards in black armor. Valari stepped in front of Jack. We're leaving, she said, her voice sharp. No. The envoy said, you're both coming with us. Jack raised his hand without thinking. The air bent around his fingers, and the guards' weapons melted in their hands. The envoy didn't move, but he smiled. You're not the first to awaken, Clark, he said, but you might be the last. Jack's voice was calm now, almost cold. Then I'll make it count. The courtroom wasn't made of walls. It was made of thoughts. Thousands of minds watched silently, their voices hidden behind glass and power. The Union's great council floated above a circular arena of white light. At the center stood two figures, small in size, but larger than anything else in the room. Jack Clark, the last awakened human, and beside him, Valari of the Mind Singers, hands clenched, spine straight, eyes burning. The lead voice of the council spoke, cold and smooth. Human Jack, you stand accused of psychic violation, memory hacking, weapon-grade thought emission, and disruption of galactic order. Jack didn't answer right away. He looked up at them, all these ancient races, wise and proud. And yet, Afraid, he could feel it, not just in their words, but in the trembling corners of their minds. They had power, yes, but they had forgotten what it meant to become. I didn't break your order, Jack said, voice calm. I reminded you it could change. Valari stepped forward. You claim to protect peace, she said, but you're afraid of minds that grow too fast. The room stirred. Minds whispered to one another, some curious, some furious, some quiet. The council's second voice responded. The human mind was locked long ago, for the safety of the galaxy. And who locked it? Valari asked. Silence followed. Jack turned to face the gathered watchers. Aliens of every kind stood in the galleries, engineers, scholars, telepaths, warriors. He raised his hand, not to threaten, but to show, and his memories poured into the space, visible, shareable, undeniable. He showed them the obelisk, the gate, the locked knowledge, the ancient files, and then he showed them himself not as a weapon, but as evidence. You didn't create me, he said. You buried me. I am not evolution, he added. I am memory waking up. The council stirred, energy sparking along the ceiling. One of the elder voices leaned forward. If what you say is true, it said, then what stops you from becoming the next threat? Jack looked at Valari, and then back at the council. Nothing, he said, except choice. I could burn this chamber down, he added, but I won't, because we don't want war. He turned slowly, speaking now not just with words, but with thoughts that reached every being in the chamber. We want place, he said, a seat, not a sword. Then Valari stepped forward. You call him dangerous, she said, but you've forgotten what dangerous really means. Danger is a mind you do not understand, but danger is also potential. She reached out and took Jack's hand in front of them all. And this potential will not be erased again. For a long moment, no one moved. The minds of the council twisted and turned like leaves in wind. Then one by one, voices changed, not all, but enough. Enough to shift the weight. A ruling was announced, not with joy, but with fear and respect. Human Jack Clark and telepath Valari shall not be destroyed. They shall be watched, and they shall walk beyond the Union's edge, where minds may still grow. Jack exhaled slowly, not with relief but with readiness. Valari squeezed his hand once, and then let go. They're letting us live, he said. She nodded. For now. Back aboard the silent ship gifted by the old minds, Jack stared into the stars. The stars stared back. He didn't feel victorious. He felt opened, as if the galaxy had just become a mirror, and inside it, he had seen something old and vast and unfinished. Valari joined him at the viewport, her voice soft. You changed the future. Jack shook his head. No, he said. I just reminded it. What it used to be. She leaned closer. What now? Jack smiled, but it wasn't the smile of a hero. It was the smile of a storm, just learning to speak. Now, he said, we find the others, and far across the stars, on quiet human colonies, children began to dream of fire, not destruction, but becoming, and somewhere beyond the mapped galaxies, the gate pulsed once more, not closed, not open, but watching.